Okay, so over the last week, I've seen a whole bunch of videos out there talking about how this new DMCA law is going to put streamers in jail if they play music on stream. But so many of those videos are either not telling the whole truth, or at least they're not telling the whole side of the story, or they're using the wrong law entirely. Let's look at a couple of these videos, for example, right here. Kinda. Almost true. Not technically false. Wrong law. Absolutely not. Let's talk about it. So let me start off by saying that if this was a DMCA expansion or it was a power grab by the music industry, I'd say so. But it's not, and it's not. Because first of all, this isn't even a DMCA law. It's a criminal law. DMCA is a totally separate thing, and so many videos have said that this is a new DMCA law that's trying to put people in prison, and it's just not. This new law is actually an expansion of a law that already exists. It's just filling a loophole called the streamer loophole. It's actually an expansion of this law. Any person who commits an offense under Section 506 of Title 17 shall be imprisoned not more than 5 years if they distribute by electronic means or otherwise during a 180-day period at least 10 copies of one or more copyrighted works which have a total retail value of more than $2,500. And if they do it another time, they can be in prison for not more than 10 years. But the part that we actually need to pay attention to is this. In any other case, a person violating that section shall be imprisoned not more than 1 year or fined in an amount set forth in this title or both. And that's significant because that any other case is currently what streamers would be prosecuted under right now. Before this law ever goes into place, streamers already can be prosecuted for playing music over their streams. But they're not. You see, that any other case they're talking about in this law is called a public performance, and any streaming site that you've ever used, Spotify, YouTube, the weird streaming app that you have on your toaster, those are all considered public performances, and every single one of them you either pay for or watch ads on, and that's how they're able to actually play that music to you, and why you get strikes if you play it whenever you try to monetize it and you don't own it. But it's not just those normal services that it applies to. You remember 123movies.com? You can say you don't, I know you do. It's the place you went to if you wanted to watch a movie that you didn't own, or a TV show that you didn't own, or it wasn't on TV, and you didn't have it on Netflix or any of these other services. You went there, and you clicked on it, and you watched it without ever having to pay for it. And you did that only by risking this guy right here, because you're getting a virus. 123movies counts also as a public performance, just like any person on Twitch or YouTube does as well. Any of those broadcasts count as a public performance under this current law. And under that current law, no matter how much you stream, you're only subject up to 1 year in prison. Let me put it this way. 123movies over the course of several years streamed millions, if not billions of hours of movies, TV shows, music, copyrighted material that you never had to pay for and that they never paid any of the original owners to stream to you. And despite the fact that they streamed billions of hours of content to you that you didn't have to pay for and they never paid anybody for, do you know how much they were subject to in terms of jail time? Up to 1 year. And let me put that into perspective a little bit. They streamed billions of hours of content to you for free and were subject to up to 1 year in prison under the current law. Had they distributed however many copies of Marvel's Avengers it takes to get to $2,500 over a 6-month period, they would have been subject to 5 years in prison. 5 years for doing the exact same thing that they were doing, except for in their case, they were doing it over the internet and it counted as a public performance. And had they done it again, they would have been subject to 10 years. So you'd see that there's clearly a loophole here that they were exploiting and they never had to pay for it. They actually had to be prosecuted under like racketeering laws and things like that, just so that the federal government can make it worth their time to prosecute them. And this streaming loophole isn't new. Actually, we've known about it for a long time. In fact, in 2011, a bill that had similar stuff in it was proposed by the US Senate that would have closed this exact same loophole. And the only reason it didn't pass that time was because senators were worried that it was going to affect individual users of those streaming sites, not just the streaming sites themselves. And so they voted it down. Now, fast forward 9 years, and the US Senate's trying to plug that loophole again. But despite the fact they're proposing pretty much the same thing that they were proposing in 2011, pretty much the only thing that we see in these YouTube videos and news articles is that they're trying to plug some sort of streamer loophole and put streamers in prison, when it's just not the case. Okay, so the law in question that has everyone stirred up is this. The Protecting Lawful Streaming Act of 2020 was introduced by Thom Tillis at the beginning of December with the specific goal of plugging a loophole in the current law. Basically what it did was it upped the penalties for streaming things up from up to 1 year, which it currently is, up to 3, 5, or 10 years, just depending on the severity of the crime. So I flashed everything up on the screen about what the new bill is, what the text of the law actually is, but that's actually not important because what we're here to talk about is what it isn't. And what it isn't is a new law that's aimed at streamers to try to put them in jail and to give them felonies. But I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Alex, listen, how do we know that Thom Tillis doesn't want to put people in jail and this isn't done under the guise of expanding DMCA? Well, actually, my answer to that is twofold, and here's why. Because A, one, whatever this is, DMCA isn't a criminal penalty. It's a civil penalty that was put in place so that copyright owners and content creators had a quick civil way to go after people who stole their stuff and get it taken down and stop them from distributing it. This law is different. This law is expressly there, and it's solely there to plug the streaming loophole, to make it so that people who stream, like 123 Movies do, billions of hours of content to people who don't own it and don't pay for it, are subject to the same penalties as if they were distributing physical copies of that same stuff. And not only that, it's also there to give federal prosecutors teeth when prosecuting these types of crimes, so they don't have to resort to prosecuting people under racketeering and gang laws. And 2, how do I know this isn't targeted at streamers and it's not there to put people in jail for streaming stuff on their streams? Here's how. Based on the latest information put out by the Department of Justice, in 2011, they only prosecuted 46 people for copyright infringement. And in 2012, they only prosecuted 59 defendants for copyright infringement. And misdemeanor cases were prosecuted at an even lower rate. How low? Well, I reached out to the US Copyright Office and the Department of Justice, and while the Department of Justice didn't get back to me, the Copyright Office did. And basically what they said is that they can't think of a single time in which this law, the current law, the streaming loophole as it exists, was used to ever target a streamer or a YouTuber for playing music on their stream. I mean, just think about that for a second. Out of all the people that are up in arms about being put in jail over this new law, a current law currently exists and has existed for some time, and it has never once been used to prosecute a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer. But it's not just that. If we look at Thom Tillis' press release and the actual text of the bill, at no point does it mention anything even close to Twitch or YouTube in terms of these streaming services that they're talking about. In fact, it's entirely possible that Thom Tillis has never actually heard of Twitch or YouTube. But it actually goes even further than that, because other than the Copyright Office and the Department of Justice, there are also other government agencies that look into this exact issue, and none of them have ever talked about Twitch or YouTube being a part of the streaming loophole. In fact, in a 2018 out-of-cycle review of notorious markets put out by the Office of the United States Trade Representative Executive Office of the President, they found that there were several notorious markets that they wanted to target with a new law filling the streaming loophole. And let me just read you a couple of them, because you may have heard of them, and every single time that you've ever seen one of these, I guarantee you ran the other way because they're scary. BOTQ, never heard of that one. Flavido.biz or 2conf.com. fmovies.is, which redirects to what was 123movies.com. Kinogo.cc. openload.co, rapidgator.net, TV Plus, up2box.com. Now, can any of you watching actually say that you would ever click on any of these sites? And any of you watching, can you actually say that these are the type of sites that need to be protected? I mean, these aren't sites that have individual content creators like you and me that have people on there that are playing music in the background of their videos just to entertain their stream in between games. These are sites that are specifically there just to steal stuff. And it's these types of sites that Thom Tillis' press release, the text of the bill, the Copyright Office, the Office of the President, everybody is targeting. Never once did they ever mention Twitch or YouTube or streamers or YouTubers, ever. And so why is it that all the press and all the videos that you've seen have all talked about how this is a DMCA expansion and how this is just the government trying to power grab and put streamers in jail? I don't really know. But what I do know is this. This law is not targeted at streamers. The previous law was not targeted at streamers. And nobody you know, not a big streamer, not a little streamer, nobody is going to go to jail under this new law. But if you want to be careful and make sure that there's no way you're going to be subject to this new law, what can you do? Don't play copyrighted music in your Twitch streams. Don't play copyrighted music on your YouTube videos. Don't play copyrighted videos anywhere. Don't try to make money off of copyrighted stuff. And even if you do all of these things, the likelihood that you're going to catch the federal government's attention is so minuscule to the point that it's not even worth talking about. And if you need any more reassurances, let me give you some. I'm a prosecutor. And if I heard that you were doing this, if you came up to me and told me that you were doing it, showed me the evidence of what you were doing, you know what I would do? Probably watch your video. Being honest. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to prosecute you under this new law. But that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank you all for watching, and as always, I'm an attorney. I'm not your attorney. You should always seek out better legal advice, and I'll see you next time.